Alright, hello, and welcome. So we're continuing on our Wonderland challenge, and for today, we're working on the card guard, which, for sake of this composition, is probably going to be limited to just the main character for visual storytelling back here. Maybe I'll pop in another one when we get to the Knave of Hearts, depending on how the rest of the composition is going at that point. But for the moment, here we go. Slide the camera up a little bit. Apparently I moved it way down low when we were doing the anemone yesterday. Right, so... back on the zoom. Great. So here's where we are at the moment. You can see more bits of Wonderland are slowly getting filled in. I really feel like I might need to actually return my curtain because every time I'm sitting over here, my arm and my shoulder are kind of casting a shadow over here on the right. Work in progress. So now I know more adjustments to be making and getting stuff tweaked. So, yeah, now we have a executioner type area. I've started blocking him in. I really like the original Tenniel, the John Tenniel illustrations for Alice in Wonderland. So I'm actually sticking pretty close to the source material. He's just getting slight adjustments as far as a bit of a darker overall look because of the executioner's mask as well as the axe. So it's a very long. I'm going with a pole axe here. A little bit of dramatic flair. Also, would be easier to see with how far back he is in the composition. I've also gone with a new soundtrack, not a soundtrack, a new playlist for this particular stream, and that's to kind of get some of those nice dark vibes going. So I'm going to polish up just a touch more detail. Right now, for the executioner area, you can see an idea as far as the layers of where the stones will be, but you don't see the organic shape that those stones will be. Those will be like very found and stacked together for this area. Start zooming in for some detail. I'm gonna see how close I can get with the camera before I have to shuffle things on the desk. It's kind of the fun thing with moving around this composition is like, okay, now that's out of focus, I need to move this on my desk. So my mount is incredibly flexible in quite a few ways as far as the ball mount. I'm able to go ahead and adjust angles pretty significantly. But as far as moving it further to the right on my desk, that's not really an option unless I want to go ahead and swap back to the other mount for a day, which I still have to figure out how to flip the camera input because that was not great in seeing everything upside down for you guys. Up until, when I paint upside down. I don't mind painting upside down, but for me, drawing upside down, unless I'm working directly from a reference, is bothersome. Which is why I haven't been doing it. I don't mind seeing this composition from different angles, but the initial drawing, I feel a lot more comfortable getting that down right side up. Which, really random skill involving which way things are facing. I actually used to be able to write both backwards and upside down in cursive back in high school, which was the silliest random thing to me. I would find that amusing. And I mean, if you can't amuse yourself, then, I feel like there's a problem. Alright, so as far as adjustments, let's make sure my light isn't being cranky. So I'm still kind of feeling out this light if I feel like it's going to be obtrusive to my working. And I'm still slightly on the fence about that. I've gone ahead and bumped up the ISO so you're able to see a little bit more of the detail. though it is a little more likely to get washed out, but it should be suffering less from my arm in between the window and the light coming from it to the desk. So hopefully that'll improve things over here. And I just want to get a little bit more detail on our guard here. So with our guard, let's see. With these tiny arms, before I've bulked them up, make him seem a little wider proportionally. We're going to adjust that a bit. Just wanted to block in some general arm placement while I was figuring out how his arm would be sitting. I just kind of feel like this guy's probably worn a little rut into this spot. The queen calls for execution so often. You guys will have to let me know what you think of the spookier playlist for today. Love to hear your comments on the videos and in the stream. I'd like to keep the conversation going. We're going to go with, like I said, an executioner's mask. We already have his head kind of blocked in. Checking to see how much detail you're getting, which is 0, because my autofocus is focusing on my hand instead of the drawing. There we go. Hopefully that stays over there where I want it. Oh, I need to adjust X-Blade. Really, I just need to clean up that detail. We're this far back. It would really benefit me to swap to a finer lead for my pencil for these further back details. And that's something I need to find. I'm sure I have a 0.3 millimeter pencil. I like mechanical pencils because in general they remain with a point. You'll also see as I'm drawing and painting even, I have a tendency to go ahead and just keep rotating the pencil or the brush, and that's just practice from using regular pencils, especially in doing some graphite work. I did a lot in pencil before really getting into color. Occasionally a little bit of painting with acrylic. Watercolors where it's like I want all the color. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I think it's maybe just where I am at with exploration because I did so much that was monochromatic for a while. So I'm going to put my shoulder back over here because that adjusts the exposure from being completely washed out. And we're gonna do a quick sip of coffee. So I'm still here, I'm just muted so I'm not slurping in your ear. And that is actually one of the worst mental pictures now in my head, talking about slurping in ears. It's like, I could probably phrase that better. I don't know. about you guys, but I feel like I should phrase that better in the future. I don't know why I tend to glom onto these like grotesque verbal descriptions of things, and it's like, it's really not that bad. But geez, the mental imagery sometimes. It's terrible. Alright. So, with the card guard, clearly we're not doing any face cards. These guys are all parts of the regular card suits. I'm just having a debate on portrayal. My debate is with the pips. Do I want to specifically indicate what number they are? I saw in what I can find for the original Tenniel instruction, well, not instructions, illustrations. Wow, that that Tenniel did not include that, and that was fairly common in the Victorian era. I don't think they actually placed any numbers on the cards. I think just for a lot of contrast visually, I think I'm going to have him be the ace of spades and go ahead and include pips for that. So, a little bit of old, a little bit of new, because of a modern card illustration. I think that makes him visually impactful from back here, just seeing the large ace, well, the large spade in the center. I do kind of wish he was further to the foreground, because I've seen some really gorgeous card decks, but that type of detail is just not warranted for a character who's so far back at the composition. And seriously, if you're ever just bored, look up some playing card designs. They are some really interesting designs. Actually, the same goes for tarot cards. There's some really, really gorgeous artwork out there too. Like, really nerding out about, in the past year, I have a 7 of Cups illustration. It's an original from Stephanie Law, and it's like my nerd moment. Like, I can't believe I got it. Fun stuff. Alright, so I think that's enough detail for how far back he is. I'm so torn on those tips. Maybe I just want to do the A's. I'm gonna go with a little bit of an antique styling to him. Just as far as like a probably raw sienna. Just a touch of that to give this a nice weathered effect on our card guard. I've left the face off, which actually that reminds me, I meant to come in here. Just make it a little more foreboding from far away. It looks like a lot of executioners wore like a hood with a mask that would drape over the front. That's going to be a little bit of a hard read from this far. But we'll go kind of light with the hood initially, and then we'll go ahead and go in deeper with some shadows. since it's probably like a leathery effect, I think that would be interesting. And I need to get my shoulder back over here so that's not totally blown out. One of these days I will be a little more cognizant and not doing these things up front. Instead it'll be like an accident once in a while. So let's get rid of the fuzzies. Roommates have cats, which are fun and wonderful creatures, but I don't like their fuzzies getting on my art. Alright, we have our water over here right now because I still have coffee on the other side. It's like, don't drink your paint water. And it's like nice timing. My phone I use as a secondary screen when I'm working. And it's like, update, update, update. Like, just stop telling me. Just do it when I'm asleep. I schedule it to do it when I'm asleep, and then I wake up and it's not done. Like, we literally scheduled this. Why? Alright, so let's go ahead and just quick reminder, feel free to comment. I'm happy to see your comments. And I think myself, I'm going to be wearing my reading glasses because this guy's a little further back from the edge of my desk than I would usually prefer. Oh, it is really messing me up having the water on the other side now. Alright, so I'm going to finish my coffee and we're going to move our water. Anyone else get self-conscious about saying we when they're referring to stuff like with an audience? It's like, I mean, you guys too. It's not just me here. At least, I don't know. I stress. I freak out about things. So, maybe it is just me. No, I really love the idea of him being a black card suit, but then I'm going to be putting him in all black. I'm kind of like, Oh, it's alright. We're just gonna move on. He's actually, I think, going to be a fairly quick character to paint. Really, other than like the contrast for the axe handle and adding the aging, effect for the card itself, I'm kind of like, will this take more than like 2 minutes to paint? So my thing about putting in some contrast back here, originally I was thinking I would go with the like solid legs for Tennials. Similar to Tennials reference, but I also feel like that cheapens the seriousness of this character. And today we're using the #1 brush again for details. Right now I'm just locking in some solid areas of color, and then we'll come back and do some shading later. We might not even do that much because he is actually much further in the scene than Alice is. Just slide her over to give you kind of an idea of scope. So, like, he is set so much further in, we might not do any detail. It might just be, yeah, you happen to be able to see him. He's just kind of making this area a little more interesting in the composition. So really most of him can be silhouetted, but I also want him to be an effective little sticker. I think he would be kind of cute in a planner, just like, yo, you need to do this task. I kind of like that idea, actually. I might actually do a bigger version of him. Just because it's like, yeah, seriously, get down to work now. You got deadlines. I got an axe. I suppose that's all silly. That's what Wonderland's for. So because the cards are the bodies of the card guard, I'm kind of inclined to go with like the leather armor for like the arms and the legs, or tights, whatever is new. I like that the card himself, he's old. He's seen some stuff. Been doing this job for way too long. His hand, oh, wayward. These characters have kind of strange proportions. Suddenly having legs just below the knee. I find him looking a little bit wonky. And so far we're just playing with the neutral tint. I'm going lighter for this mask area. So I want to go really dark with the eye holes, so that even at this distance, that's going to be piercing. Every once in a while, one little hair on this brush will decide to just skip off and do its own thing, and this is not the time. So not the time right now, little brush. I need you to behave. Alright, and for this, we've been using neutral 10. I don't remember if I said that earlier. That's basically a red-green mix, which we'll see if I have the right shades of red-green just to demonstrate it, because while I absolutely love it as a pre-mixed color in my palette because it is convenient, I also like being able to play with the shades in between. So, excuse me, if I recall correctly, this is a phthalo green blue shade and quinacridone lilac, I believe, are the the neutralizing pair for this. Going in with the Thala green blue shade. They should still neutralize pretty well, even if I get the pair slightly off. We go in, and we get this lovely purpley gray thing going on, and I need a little bit more green in that mix. Now we have too much green in the mix. The fun thing about Thalos with their mixing strength, I probably should do this on the palette and would have a little bit more room to tip that mix one way or the other. But you can see over here, gray each other out. I think I need a redder tone. Or it might be a little bit stronger on the red side. Oh, we're close. We're getting some really fun purples and blues. So, if you have these colors on your palette, I do recommend playing with them because you get some really wonderful shades while you're neutralizing those down. I'm wondering if maybe this is the quinacridone lilac from yesterday that we were mixing with the dioxazine purple, or carpazole violet, or Windsor violet. And this is probably a lot closer. This is the M-gram quinacridone rose. I like it because it's a little bit warmer. I think that's what we need with trying to do this neutral tint mix. So I'm just going to put the green down. I'm going to rinse my brush because both of these puddles are fairly even right now. I think that was what was going on with this, having so much pigment on my brush. I was tipping the mix a little too far one way. Just helps on my camera. At some point, you hit this sweet spot of, there we go, muted purple. And that's about where neutral tint is, but maybe even slightly more with the red and a lot more pigment. So it's a lot of fun pre-mixed. Autofocus sometimes is a bear. Sometimes I really love it, sometimes not so much. So part of that puttering around with the paint mix was intentional, so we can wait for most of this layer to dry before we're doing anything else with the card guard. At this point, I'm going to lay in, we'll stick with the number 8 brush right now. This will make the initial aging wash go a little darker. Not a little darker, a little easier. Wow, I can English. I'm not worried about laying this wash over the whole surface of where the card body actually is, because later on we're going to come in with a deeper brown to go ahead and add this, and then maybe pop in a little bit of a shadow for if the axe would be casting a shadow across the body. Thinking of the light being over here, it makes sense that the shadow would be that way a bit, but that is later. I think initially I just want to go in with a touch of this raw sienna, which did wonderfully for us with the key shadow sitting on top of that phthalo blue without having any ill effects that I was able to notice. I think I've gone a little too dark with some of that. I'm gonna pick up a bit of that raw sienna. And the reason I chose raw sienna specifically for this area is because it is very slightly granulating. If you like this color and you want to go with more granulation, I would recommend goethite. Goethite is so much fun too. It's kind of like the color of adding cream to your coffee in a wonderful tan shade. But anyways, with the raw sienna is able to lift, which I seem to be having trouble doing with this soft brush. I think maybe I'm going to go over here. This is one of my random open stock brushes. This is a Silver Sterling Studio 6000S round. It's a number 1. The bristles are probably about the same length, but they are very springy. Hoping that this might help me lift a little bit more pigment. So I did go a little bit dark with that. It's like, I want aging. I don't want it to look like this card was at a casino in the Wild West and dug up like 100 years after the fact. I'm trying to be really gentle about going near these arms. I don't want to possibly reactivate that neutral tint layer. Alright, so I can see we lighten him so slightly. I'm actually going to bring in my scrubber brush. So this is not quite as light as I wanted, and I know it can go lighter. This is a little bit of a new paper for me. I've had it for a while, but I haven't been using it. And just because with the projects that I've been working on, for the moment, the sizes I had weren't optimal for what I was working on. Now, calling this a scrubber brush, I'm not really scrubbing the paper. It's more like these bristles are damp, and I'm gently tapping it over. I'm not trying to just rough up my paper surface. I want it to continue accepting washes. I think that's as good as I'm getting. And I think I blobbed on some random pigment over here. Alright. So that's lightened him up a bit. We're gonna go ahead and let the body dry a little bit. I think I'm going to keep using the Silver Sterling Studio round one. It's the fun thing about brushes, just so you have a comparison. So we have a round one by Princeton Velvet Touch. Zooming. Focus over here. Yes. And then we have the one by Silver Sterling Studio. And you'll see on the tips how much more narrow and how different brushes can be. So just because someone tells you that they're working with a size doesn't mean you're going to be grabbing the same thing unless you get the specific same brush from the same manufacturer. So just to go ahead and give you an idea. And I don't love that they're not standardized, but at the same time, it doesn't irk me. It's a really weird in-between space there. So, moving on with our card guard. I could go in with the neutral tint to go ahead and darken those eyes and get a really deep value going on. But actually, I think I'm going to work in some really deep blue. And I find myself going with a lot of convenience colors here. I'm actually in the debate, do I want to just grab the Payne's gray? No, I'm not. I'm not going to grab the Payne's gray. I'm going to go ahead and use a neutralizing pair. I'm currently grabbing some... Actually, I am starting to grab some quinacridone burnt orange. I like using that as... It basically acts like burnt sienna on my palette, but it's a bit brighter. But the reason I'm pausing right now, I have that on my neutral area of the paint well, and I'm like, well, at this point, I don't know what pigments are sitting where. So I'm just grabbing a swath here. That giant puddle of neutral tint just seems to continue living on my palette because of a painting workshop I was doing, and I used a lot of neutral tint for that particular piece. And since then, I just have a fairly large part of this section dedicated to that particular color. And it doesn't bother me. It's just one of those weird things that I've noticed, like, yeah, I use that color a whole lot one time, and here I am not rinsing it off and moving other colors in place. So I think maybe I need more room for neutrals. I'm doing little mixes. But we'll see. Alright, let's get our water bead off the ferrule. Grabbing a little bit more of our quinacridone burnt orange and indanthrone blue. And give me just a moment while I take a look at what's going on. Right, so I do need to take care of something downstairs momentarily for my daughter's schoolwork. Unfortunately, this can't wait. So, I will be back shortly. Please continue to enjoy the soundtrack. I'll go ahead and turn that up for a moment while I'm away. Ready to begin. Alright, and quick adjustment to turn down the music. I hope I haven't gone the other way around and started turning the music down too far. Alright, so my apologies for the wait. Now that I've had to step away like that, well, most of our card guard should be pretty dry. So what I'm doing is I'm currently taking that neutralizing pair. I have 2 puddles of it, so I can go ahead and tilt the mix either way. Sorry for shaking there, I'm trying to navigate which screen I'm on the computer at the same time so I can see live. There's a little bit of a time delay I've noticed in the actual stream. So while I like to be in Twitch to see comments as they happen, I also like to see what's going on the lens of my camera right away, so I'm more often able to make corrections if need be. Right, so we're going ahead and working with that orange-blue mix, and right now we're just sectioning off a tiny bit of the blue with what orange is still in the brush. And we want that to go really blue. I'll bring that back into the frame here. Gone very blue with that mix. And actually, I'm going to test that mix. I want to make sure it's leaning far enough to blue. I don't want this just being like our neutral tint shade, which it is very close to right now. Cool thing with that particular mix, you get some really nice, you can go warmer brown, you can go cooler brown, you can get to black, you can get a lot of nice shades of gray, and also deep blue. And that's what we're going for here. I want this to be far enough where it reads as blue. I want it to be a cooler tone black to help indicate that this is metal from far away. I also want just enough of it to be like, I also want it to be really dark. So that's where I'm playing with that balance a little bit. I'm trying to mix just a slightly separate puddle in the middle. Sure, we're in the blue range, but definitely on the cooler side. There we go. So that'll work for me. Let's see if I can get the autofocus. Yes. Great, so that second swatch, we have a bluer gray. And back to repositioning these. I'm not leaning on the work. And I forgot to put the glasses back on. And I think our playlist is over. Like, is it being dramatic? Or is it over? Oh, it's being dramatic. You know, this is like the slowest track I think so far on this quote-unquote dark and mysterious type of playlist. Oh, technically it's eerie and creepy. Sorry if anyone was offended by me saying dark and mysterious instead of eerie and creepy. Alright. So now we have our card guard. Hopefully I'm getting some detail. Oh wow, this one's really... Okay, I'm skipping ahead. I want something with a little bit of something going on. And to go ahead and focus my camera. Oh, I should have left that little break. Oh, that would have been neat. And this axe blade is accidentally getting just a touch larger. Alright. And we're awash with no detail. Keep choosing a focal point, and it's really kind of frustrating sometimes not being able to be like, look, just keep looking here. I've told you this is where I want you to focus. I'm fairly certain I'm still on manual. I don't understand why so much is automated. So that might be something that I need to mess with settings a bit more. Right, so we're going back into our neutralizing pair, and this time we're working more on the orange side of the puddle. And just putting just enough blue into that to make a nice deep brown. We're still on the warm side. And I wanted this just dark enough where it's going to cover the graphite lines decently. Alright, and while we're still on this oranger side, I'm going to go a touch further into the pure orange, and probably just a hint of that blue up over here. That's fine. I want to go ahead and give him the tiniest bit of definition around the card area. And that's a little bit too strong. Definitely trying to push that this guy is a beat up card kind of look. I think I might actually push this edge a little bit cooler to act like a shadow. Alright, and now going a bit deeper for eye holes. I think I'm going to grab that darker blue. Really, for how far back he is in the composition, I probably should have gone a bit more blue. These shadows. Just about everything on him should be probably toned a bit cooler because of how far back he is. This is why we're going with this is an illustration and not realism, because he should probably also be quite a bit more blurred, but we can't have everybody just standing in a line in the foreground. That makes for, I don't know, very, very boring storytelling. I've managed to spend almost an hour painting this guy too. Well, I hope it's been interesting hearing my ramblings as we're getting close to the end of today's stream. I'm not trying to have them exceed an hour. I think I'm doing with the card markings themselves is I took some neutral tint and I grabbed just a touch of the Payne's Gray. I definitely could have gone with our neutralized mix. Yeah, that's not enough contrast anyway. I might actually have to come in here with some really subtle highlights later to help differentiate the arms a little bit better. Or I can go ahead and darken a couple areas of the arm just to help provide that contrast. One thing I'm not liking is how just brown the card is right now. Even though the raw sienna is like a yellow earth tone, I feel like now he's got a little bit too much brown going on. So just a touch of the quinacridone gold. I'm just gonna warm up a random spot. Staying away from the areas that I already painted. I don't want it to just be like browning for the age, but actual yellowing. A lot of times, like, I don't know if you found like a stash of old paperwork from like grade school or something where it's not acid-free paper and it's got that yellow tone to it. I think I'll glaze a touch more yellow in there later. And we want to give the tiniest hint of shadow to help indicate form a little bit better for this mask. Alright. I think that is it for tonight. Or I should say for this afternoon. I don't know why I'm thinking it's nighttime already. But we'll see the Knave of Hearts getting, well, the Queen of Hearts getting some justice on the Knave of Hearts at some point here. And watch as we get a little bit more going on in our Wonderland world. Really looking forward to when we put all these elements together. And you know what, while we're here, I'm going to drop that ISO a touch. And we're going to pop in a little bit of our shadow that we hadn't gotten to on our anemone from yesterday. I'm going a bit cool tone with that, so grabbing a touch of the Indanthrone blue, but warming it up with a bit of the Carbazole violet. That's just to give us a little bit of a shadow going over here. Great. And I had a touch. Too much water in the brush still, so we're wicking that up a teeny bit. And then with our it was all violet. Just adding a little bit more depth to these sepals. And because the center isn't damp anymore, we can also go ahead and add our connecting lines to connect these stamens down to the flower, which aren't so much defined. It's more like the impression that they're there. Alright. So we'll do a quick zoom in for some detail. Actually, I think I'll just pick this up because the camera is zoomed already, and getting down to the bottom always involves a bit of arranging. So just back that up and lift the work of our anemone. And we have our card, which is quite a tiny guy. He is quite far in the background, so that works fine for him. And you can see my phone in the corner of the shot. So I think that will do for today for Wonderland. We'll see what new details unfold as we continue on. And that's been it for day 10. And I'm just pulling up the prompt for tomorrow. Alright, so in ending, tomorrow is Caterpillar, which is one of my personal favorite characters. I very much liked seeing the Caterpillar. So I'm excited to get him on the page. And we'll be back to lighter play music. Lighter music for our playlist. Wow, I can English. We'll be on to some lighter music as we go back to more of the ethereal and whimsical side of Wonderland. So I hope you'll join me tomorrow and keep painting.